All right, today we are going to break down one of the most important ideas in all of crypto, proof of work. You've probably heard the term, especially when people talk about Bitcoin mining. Well, proof of work is the engine that makes it all run. If you've ever wondered what's actually happening behind the scenes, you are in exactly the right place. So let's get into it.
First things first, let's start with the big problem that crypto had to solve. In our normal world, we have banks and governments to make us trust our money. But in a digital world with no one in charge, how do you trust it? How do you know the money is real and that people aren't just making copies and cheating the system? That single question right there is exactly what proof of work was created to answer.
So, what is it really? At its heart, proof of work is basically a giant competition. You have computers all over the world. We call them miners, and they're all racing against each other to solve a really complex puzzle. The first one to crack it gets the right to add the newest batch of transactions to the public ledger. And for all that effort, they get a reward. That competition is the secret ingredient to the whole thing.
To make this super simple, let's use an analogy. Imagine a classroom. The teacher puts a ridiculously difficult math problem on the board. Now all the students start working on it. The very first student to find the solution gets to go up and write it on that shared board for everyone to see. And here's the key. For the other students, checking if the answer is correct is super easy and fast. The sheer difficulty of the problem makes it impossible for one student to just run up and spam the board with fake answers. That idea, that something is very hard to solve but very easy to verify, is the soul of proof of work. Okay, so that classroom analogy is a great way to wrap your head around the idea. But how does this all actually work in the digital world with computers and code? Let's follow a transaction step by step, from the moment you hit send to the moment it gets locked into the blockchain. So when you send some crypto, it doesn't just instantly appear on the blockchain. First, it goes into this big digital waiting room, which is called the mempool. From there, miners look into this pool of waiting transactions, and they start picking them out. Usually, they'll grab the ones that offer a higher transaction fee first. They then bundle hundreds or thousands of these transactions together into what's called a candidate block. Now, this block is ready to enter the race. But before we can talk about the race, we need to understand a critical tool called a hash. The easiest way to think about a hash is like a unique digital fingerprint for data. It's completely unpredictable. You can't work backward from the fingerprint to figure out the data. And here's the magic part. If you change just one tiny bit of the original data, the fingerprint changes completely. This makes it an absolutely perfect tool for security. And this brings us to the actual work. Miners take their candidate block and they add a random number to it called a nonce. Then they hash the whole thing. Their goal is to find a nonce that produces a hash with a very specific pattern, like starting with a whole bunch of zeros. The only way to do this is by guessing. It's a pure brute force guessing game, with miners making trillions of guesses every single second. The first one to get lucky and find that winning hash broadcasts their block to the whole network. Everyone else quickly verifies it, the block gets added to the chain, and the winner gets their reward. So all of this intense work, right? This global competition running 24/7, it's not just some fun computer game. It all serves one single, absolutely crucial purpose: to create a digital fortress that is incredibly, incredibly difficult to attack. See, the security of proof of work isn't just based on clever software. It's anchored in real-world economics and physics. To do all that guessing, you need massive amounts of electricity and very powerful specialized computers. This means that to cheat the system, you can't just be a brilliant hacker. You have to be willing to spend a fortune on real-world resources. The system is designed to make cheating prohibitively expensive. This brings us to a classic problem in digital money, often called the double spend problem. Basically, what's to stop someone from making a copy of their digital coin and spending it in two different places at the same time? Well, proof of work solves this in a really elegant way. Let's say a hacker wanted to change a transaction from the past. To do that, they wouldn't just have to resolve the puzzle for that one block. They'd have to redo the work for that block and for every single block that has been added on top of it since. And they'd have to do all of this work faster than the entire rest of the network is building the chain forward. Every 10 minutes, a new block gets added, and the hacker's job gets exponentially harder and more expensive. Pretty soon, it becomes physically and economically impossible. Now, is there any way to pull this off? Well, theoretically, yes. It's called a 51% attack. This is the scenario where a single person or group manages to control more than half of the entire network's computing power. If you had more power than all the honest miners combined, you could, in theory, start rewriting the blockchain. But here's the beautiful part. Even if you could somehow get that much power, the attack is economically self-destructive. The cost to buy the computer hardware and pay for the electricity would be absolutely astronomical. And the second you launched your attack, people would lose faith in the network, the price of the coin would crash, and the very reward you were trying to steal would become worthless. It's like burning down the entire bank just to rob one empty vault. It just doesn't make sense. Now, as amazing as this security model is, proof of work isn't perfect. It's actually one of the most debated topics in crypto because it comes with some pretty significant trade-offs. So let's take a fair look at both sides of the coin, the pros and the cons. On the one hand, you have its incredible strengths. It provides the strongest security we know of. It allows for true decentralization where anyone can participate, and it's been battle-tested for over a decade with Bitcoin. But on the other side are the disadvantages you always hear about. The massive energy consumption is the big one, of course. Then there's the need for expensive, specialized hardware, and the fact that it can be slow, which limits its scalability. This quote does a great job of reframing that whole energy debate. The argument is that the energy isn't really wasted. It's the cost of security. You know, traditional banks spend billions on giant buildings, steel vaults, security guards, and computer systems. Proof of work just spends its security budget on electricity to create digital trust without needing any of that. It literally converts energy into security. So this leads us to the big question. With all these newer, faster, and more energy-efficient technologies coming out, is proof of work obsolete? Is it just a relic from the early days of crypto, or is it still a crucial foundation for the future? Well, the way people are thinking about this is starting to change. It's less about one system replacing the other, and more about them having different jobs. The idea is that proof of work is becoming seen as the ultimate bedrock layer, the most secure foundation you can build on, perfect for a global monetary network. And then other systems, like proof of stake, are better for things that need to be fast and scalable, like applications that can be built on top of that secure foundation. And what's really fascinating is that the hunt for cheap electricity is driving real innovation. Miners are incentivized to find the absolute cheapest power on the planet, which is often renewable energy like solar and hydro, or energy that would otherwise be completely wasted, like the natural gas that gets flared off at oil fields. So, ironically, proof of work could actually end up accelerating the world's transition to greener energy. And that really brings us to the core idea I want to leave you with today. This quote really says it all. Proof of work is not just a consensus mechanism. It is a philosophy of digital trust. It's more than just code. It's the powerful idea that in a digital world with no rulers, we can create trust based on provable, costly, real-world effort. And as long as true decentralization and ultimate security are things we value, this foundational concept is probably going to be with us for a very, very long time. Thanks for joining this explainer.